Hi, and welcome back to Wounded on Sixes. Today we're going to be taking a look at my brand new Necrons army that I've been building up, buying up, and painting up over the last few months. It's a Starshatter arsenal list, and it looks to take advantage of our opponents trying to take advantage of us. It's the Return of the King. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's start things off with the Silent King. This guy is an absolute fantastic model. He's not fully painted yet. I'm still working on him. I only got him a few weeks ago, but he's an absolute fantastic support unit, which I really love, these big Primarch-like support units, and he's one of the best. And one of the reasons why he is that his powers are very effective. So the +2 move is really great with our rates, being able to kind of push them forward a little bit more and make sure that we're getting their flyover mortals. He's also really good for that reroll charge roll ability when we need it, because we are running a bunch of score packs here, and getting them into combat is very, very key when we want to use them for like a trading melee piece. And also the rerolls to hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 is really fantastic for all of our more heavy firepower units, like the Doomstalkers, like the Doomsday Ark, like the Destroyers that we have in the list. So that's really effective for all the firepower that we're bringing in the list. He also, with his +1 ability to leadership, is really good on things like our 3-man unit of Destroyers here, because they're already 2 OC, now they're 3 OC. A 3-man unit is now 9 OC. That's really, really nice. So good for holding down an objective there. He's also got 26 wounds, so nothing to sneeze at with a 4-up invul. Like, you really can't beat that. He's only T10, so he's not the most impossible thing to take down. But if you can keep him alive, and when I mean keep him alive, I mean keep him away from a lot of those, anti-vehicle dev wound weapons, you might have a chance to keep this guy around the entire game when you factor in the reanimation protocols. He's also not bad with the damage output. I mean, it's not a lot. He's not lighting the world on fire in that department. I would say probably his damage output might be his weakest part, but that's okay because we're running a lot of other damage dealers here. He can hold his own, especially in combat. Like 12 attacks is really pretty good for a model like this. And 26 wounds is nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot to get through. So I really enjoy the Silent King. He's a very, very good unit and really fantastic for supporting the rest of this list. Moving along to some of the other units in the list. First, we're going to talk about some of these utility units that I have here. And the first one is going to be a unit of Death Marks. These guys are good because we can deep strike them. So they're really good at scoring secondaries. And again, I'm really big on making sure we have something to score secondaries when we need it. So being able to drop these guys back for engage on all fronts or behind enemy lines or even establish locus in our opponent's deployment zone is absolutely key. So I really, really enjoy having some kind of deep strike threat. And I think these guys are a really great cheap option that we don't mind throwing away just to get some points. We also have some flayed ones here. The flayed ones are awesome because they have infiltrate, so we can play that game a little bit with our opponents. We're not going to be able to completely stop like a jail or a big screen or something like that, but we will be able to open up a window or a flank and use them to the best of our ability to make sure that our army can get out of its deployment zone. So it's really good to have that kind of utility unit to do that action for you, because there's a lot of armies out there now that are still looking to jail you, still looking to screen you out and keep you out of the middle of the board. Moving on, we have our little destroyer package here. So we have 3 heavy destroyers, and they are all just going to be singles. 2 have the anti-infantry weapon, 1 has the anti-vehicle weapon. They're a pretty decent unit. They take up space. They have a very small profile, so they're hard to hit from every angle on the board because they're hard to get track of because they're just these little bodies. I really enjoy the heavy destroyers a lot. They're going to benefit from the Starshatter arsenal rule because they're going to have assault. So we can move them up the board or move them into position quite quickly. really good with the Silent King there too, if we have the +2 to move active for that turn as well. So really like that Locust Heavy Destroyers, and I think that they're kind of like a slept on unit just in general, but they're really good in Starshatter Arsenal. We also have a 3-man unit of the regular destroyers. The lethal hits on these guys is really great. They're awesome for taking out infantry, and they get cheaper the more you put in there. I really like it because of, again, how I explained earlier about the Silent King allowing them to get +1 OC if they're within range of him, and just a really cheap shooty unit that's really good at that kind of like light infantry, which this list does somewhat struggle against because we just don't have a lot of volume of attacks. And these guys can really punch above their weight, and they're pretty decent against a lot of things. Even Marines, they're really good against. So I like the destroyers there. Moving right along, we have our little Scorpec destroyer brick here. So we have 2 3-mans and a third 3-man led by a Scorpec Lord. And really the purpose of these Scorpec destroyers are to kind of like sit back and be counter charge targets, particularly the things that make it into our Silent King and into our Wraith Brick there. So the thinking here is that something could maybe charge into those units, not kill them, and not be killed by them on the clapback. Now that they're stuck in combat, we can then run up our Scorpec destroyers and wipe whatever's attached to them out, maybe get some units back from the reanimation protocols, and just continue the boat going, because our main objective here is to keep our Wraith Brick and our Silent King alive as long as possible. And rather than just being purely defensive, I'd rather have an offensive pushback for them. I also like to bring the 3 units of 3. Yes, it'd be great if I had a Scorpec Lord in each one, but that would get pretty pricey, and I wouldn't be able to bring all the destroyers and other heavy weapons. So breaking them up into 3s is nice. Having the one with the Scorpec Lord will allow me to ensure that that one big bad unit, that one big melee unit that I have to deal with, this guy goes into. Being able to give them the lethal hits, rerolling everything, and also use that plasma sight for dev wounds is really, really nice on this guy. Yes, you don't get as much attacks and as much power without the Scorpec Lord attached, but these guys can also take up some real estate, perform actions when they're not going out to attack, and they can be way more versatile than just little melee pieces, because while they're waiting for a good target to go out and after against, you can kind of use them as action monkeys and proximity monkeys to basically just get them to become little point scorers while you're waiting for them to become most effective. We have a lot of ways to get them where they want to go, especially with the Silent King around. We can give that +2 move, reroll those charge rolls. They can be super effective, and we can make it really easy for them to hit those counter charge targets, and that's why we have them in the list. Next up, we have the Wraith Brick, and there's really hard to find a Necron list out there that's not bringing at least 1 unit of 6 Wraiths with a Technomancer. I'm really impressed with the way this unit can kind of take over a portion of the board, just because it has those 4-up invul, 5-up feel no pain from the Technomancer. They're not super deadly. They're not really good at killing things. They're good at not being killed. That gets harder and harder to do as 10th edition goes along, as the edition has just become super deadly and way more deadly than it used to be. And that's kind of where rates have kind of come down just a tad, in that there's just so much lethality out there. It's hard to keep them alive forever. But if you can get them in the right position and keep them moving, keep them using that mortal wound spam as much as possible, they can really be, effective damage dealers that are also giving your opponent fits on objective markers. Allowing them to be closer to the Silent King also will boost that OC, making them really hard to take an objective from, which is also really nice. So yeah, the rates are definitely a must-have, I think, in most Necron list, because you need another kind of stand on an objective and try to be hard to kill unit, because that's what Necrons do the best. They just kind of hold on to objectives and try to keep you from kicking them off. And that's where this Wraith unit is seen the most, is that unit that kind of just blocks up an objective marker and doesn't allow the opponent to do anything about them, because they continue to regenerate. They're very hard to kill. They have a lot of wounds to them, and it's easy to bring them back, especially if you keep them next to the Reanimator, which I bring the Canoptic Reanimator just to have them in with the Wraiths there, giving them a extra D3 when they do their reanimation protocols. Usually means that we're bringing back at least a full body a turn, if not more. So very, very effective. And yes, you're going to need that Reanimator to make them that much more effective, as we don't have the points for things like the Crypt Rolls in here. So being able to make sure that we're getting more on our reanimation protocol from the Reanimator is very, very important. Last but not least, we have some of the heavier vehicles. So right here, I have 2 Doomsday Stalkers, and I have a Doomsday Arc being played by a Ghost Arc today, as I don't actually have the Doomsday Arc configuration. But the Doomsday Arc, is an absolute fantastic vehicle. Very, very good at blowing up things. Flat 4 damage is really, really nice. The 4-up invo helps to keep it alive. The Stalkers are kind of like its little brother. Personally, if I had my druthers, I'd have at least another Doomsday Arc and get rid of both of these. I guess my biggest problem with these is the D6+1. It can be very, very shaky, and they're also only hitting on 4s unless you stayed still. So there is a chance that you're just completely whiffing with this unit. Other times, you shoot it into a big brick of guys with the blast on it. It can be, completely lights out for that other unit. So they're very, very swingy. I mean, the Doomsday Arc itself can also be swingy, but not as bad, I find. And it does just that much more damage. So can really, really, really punch up. Whereas these guys are, they're not bad at taking out heavy infantry and lighter vehicles, but the problem with their flat 3 damage is that they have to get a lot of attacks. They need a lot of those attacks to hit and wound. And sometimes they kind of fall short. Again, if I had another Doomsday Arc, I'd probably replace both of these and make some adjustments. But for right now, I'm using the Walkers. They definitely are not the best. They do have their ability to hit on 5s in Overwatch is not bad. But again, I probably wouldn't do that unless I was close enough to the Silent King with his rerolls active to even tempt it there. The Doomsday Arc, he is, our big hitter, trying to kind of hold back the tide. He doesn't have the greatest damage output. I mean, flat 4 is really good, but you're never gonna see like you would from las cannons or something like D6+1 or D6+2. So there is kind of a higher floor but a lower ceiling for his damage. But if you kind of keep him close to the Silent King to get those rerolls, he can be really, really effective. It's just an all-around decent unit. My biggest problem with it is it's just kind of hard to maneuver around since it's such an awkward shape on the battlefield. So that is our heavy hitters for the list. So that is my Starshatter build. Again, not exactly the most meta, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just don't have all the models that I need for your typical competitive Starshatter list. But I feel like I'm doing my best here. And, this thing can be successful if you play it right, if you trade properly, and you keep your big units out of harm's way and allow them to kind of just soak up time on the board. It can be super effective. The biggest issue that I see is that Necrons have a hard time surviving to their reanimation protocols, and usually an army without an army rule is not a very good army. And I think that's their biggest weakness right now, is that early in the edition they did very well because it wasn't as killy as it is now, and now it's just every army has that just kill anything unit or kill anything units, and that can really
put a hurt on the Necrons because they just don't have the amount of damage output or AP to hold up to some of those like true melee armies or true shooting armies. It's definitely an army of attrition, and it definitely takes a certain kind of play style. So let me know what you think about this list down in the comments. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't. And please stay tuned because we're going to have more lists coming out for the other armies we cover on the channel. Death Guard, AdMech, Ultramarines, Tau. They're all going to get a list here soon. So make sure you come back for more Wounded on Sixes.